Good afternoon and welcome to another exciting edition of Democracy and the Rule of Law, a program where we'll take a look at topical national issues from the perspective of the rule of law and the Constitution. My name is Judith IRENOA. Report which topped national discourse just this week past, is the inauguration of President Muhammadu Buhari's cabinet and the assigning of portfolios to 43 ministers, amongst whom are 12 returning ministers, new ones, and 8 women, if I'm not confusing things there. All right, and also the police has arrested the Taraba Kingpin. Recall the man whose issue raised a whole lot of dust following the arrest of 3 IRT police officers who were on covert operations in Taraba State. He has been arrested and he's been making some damning allegations following his arrest, and this is making Nigerians talk. On the program today, we'll be taking a look at these 2 issues, which I said topped national discuss. I'm not alone in the studio today. I have our legal practitioners as usual who join in this discuss. With me today is Barrister AKEEM. FADUN, you're welcome.
Thank you very much for having me.
I also have with me AGATHA MCMADU. She's a legal practitioner as well. You're welcome.
Thank you very much for having me.
All right, Anna, Barrister Justice UHUEGBU, it's nice to have you.
It's my pleasure once more.
All right, President Muhammadu Buhari on Wednesday, like I said earlier, inaugurated his cabinet and also assigned portfolio. Also, the president unbundled the Ministry of Power, Works and Housing, which was until then one ministry under the former minister former minister was the former governor of Lagos State, Batunde Raji Fashola. I don't know why I'm modeling everything up today. Fashola has now been appointed as Works and Housing Minister, while Solomon, an engineer, is the Minister of Power. President Buhari also merged the Ministries of Finance, Budget and National Planning with Zainab Ahmed, who formerly headed the Finance Ministry, as the minister. Also, the Special Duties and International Affairs Ministry was also created with ex-Benue Governor turned Senator George Akume as the minister. The president also created the Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs, Disaster Management and Social Development, as well as the Ministry of Police Affairs, which was hitherto the Police Serving Commission. Sadia Umar Farouk is the Minister of Humanitarian Affairs and Disaster Management and Social Development, while the Ministry of Police Affairs has Maigari Denyadi as the Minister. I'll start with Barrister UHUEGBU. Many Nigerians were actually expecting these portfolios, and as expected, these old ministers who served the president in his first term actually did retain their ministry. Now, let's look at the unbundling of these ministries. The Ministry of Power, Works and Housing was merged under one ministry, being headed by former governor of Lagos State, Raji Fashola, and now it has been unbundled with an engineer heading the particular ministry. We also have the new Ministry of Humanitarian and National Disaster, because of the rebuilding of the Northeast following the ravaging of that particular area by the activities of Boko Haram insurgents. What do you make of, first, the unbundling of these ministries and also the creation of new ministries by the president?
Well, to me, I think the fact there is that ordinarily, personally, I did not see any much difference it will make, because this is not the first time it's happening, and it has happened severally. But aside from that, the question of what we should be bothering ourselves with now is this. Having looked at the ministerial list and the portfolios, are we expecting anything better? Because if you look at it as it is, so many of them were returned. Then you now ask yourself a question, what was the yardstick for returning those ones? Was there actually performance? If you are crediting, there was there actually performance for the last 4 years and all the rest. So when you look at the whole thing holistically, well, I'm beginning to see it, or I've always known it, that it is more like a politics of let us settle our people who have worked for us and all the rest. It's not a matter of let us go and do the job, because we are all Nigerians. We saw what happened the last 4 years. As far as I'm concerned, to me, nothing happened the last 4 years. So I said something last week, because following what is happening in Nigeria today and what we are experiencing, like now there's a Ministry of Police Affairs,
yes,
who used to be under the Ministry of Interior. I don't think there's any difference something is going to make as far as I'm concerned. And again, you see, this is an administration that was more like against duplicity of functions and all the rest. But we saw this administration doing the same thing also. We have 36 states of the Federation, including Abuja.
Yeah.
Now we have 40-something ministries, and that is why you see Minister for Health. You now see Minister for Health state.
Yeah.
To me, does it make sense? And every day we talk about, the government is finding it difficult to pay 30,000 naira minimum wage. And you are still in the business of duplicity of functions and all the rest. So as far as I'm concerned, I've looked at the whole thing, the way it should be and how it should be. Look at, if you go to Niger Delta, I don't want to begin, maybe we will get there. I don't want to begin to go to the integrity of the people that are so appointed so far. Because if actually we say we're fighting corruption in this administration, there are so many people there that are not supposed to be there. We should be proud and tell ourselves the truth. So to me, yes, he has appointed his ministers. Let them do what they are supposed to do till the next 4 years. That the next 4 years, let them go there and take their own national cake, because that is exactly what has been happening.
All right, Barrister UHUEGBU. I'll come to you, Barrister Agatha. What do you make of the unbundling of the creation of new ministries? Especially, he didn't touch on the Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs. You know how ravaged the Northeast region is, and we need to rebuild that particular region to make these people feel like they're citizens of this country. It is a clarion call for all to actually rebuild that region. Now that the president has created a new ministry to tackle the humanitarian crisis in the Northeast, what do you make of it?
From my point of view, many Nigerians have given up. They don't even have hope again in this new creation and new appointment. So what I'm going to advise is that the government should have the best interests of Nigerian citizens at heart. It should be for the best interest of Nigerians. This new creation of humanitarian and all that, building of infrastructure and everything, they should also look into suicides, the rate of suicide. So many people are depressed, mentally sick. So the humanitarian should not only focus on infrastructural facilities.
Northeast.
Basically or specifically, should also look at the other areas of the country in Nigeria.
All right, your thoughts before going to these personalities who are heading some critical ministries in Nigeria.
Yes, thank you very much for having me once again. I think of all the ministries that have been created, the most important one, the most commendable, I can say, is the Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs, as you mentioned. Because aside all of these ones that, you know, they keep power, housing, keep joining them and separating them depending on who is there. But the humanitarian ministry, as at 2018, we have 2.2 million refugees, or let me say displaced persons, not refugees. You can call them internal refugees. These are people who once had a house and now they don't have a place to stay. Usually we not develop nations by how they respond to humanitarian crisis. Something happens, there's a flood, somebody is responsible for taking care of them, because we don't even know how bad it is until it happens to you. Because of course we're in Lagos, we are safe, we are happy. Then something happens, there's a flood. You know, of course now there's a warning for next month from the Meteorological Agency that there are going to be a lot of floods next month. So that means someone who is sleeping in his house today, a flood will come tomorrow and wash up everything you have, and it's all gone within the blink of an eye. So what can be done? Before we had NEMA, of course we still have NEMA, but NEMA does not have a sitting at the Federal Executive Council. That's where the ministers and the president make decisions. So NEMA has to report through an agency to say, through the minister, who might not even remember when he gets there, or he might not remember. But once you have a minister of humanitarian affairs or minister of that takes care of humanitarian issues, you're able to tell the president directly that 1,000 persons, 2,000 persons have suffered, so we need relief materials. Because, as I've said before, we don't know how bad it is until it happens to one. Because, you know, you are fine today and then the flood washes up everything you have. And of course, it's very important, considering Nigeria's situation, peculiar situation, I might add.
All right, Barrister Huebu, let's talk about the ministers. Let's start from the Minister of Power. Initially, this ministry was handled by Raji Fashola, the former governor of Lagos State, and many Nigerians were not so impressed with his performance, and many also gave the excuse this is because he's managing 3 key ministries, also the Ministry of Power, Works and Housing. You would agree with me, these are very important ministries. And now this ministry has been unbundled. The Ministry of Power is now being handled by an engineer, Maman Saleh, while the former governor of Lagos State is handling the Ministry of Works and Housing. So what do you think this, what should be the agenda of the Ministry of Power? Let's start with that.
Well, if you're saying that we're all Nigerians, what else should be the agenda of Ministry of Power? Not to make sure there is uninterrupted power supply in this country. Is there any other thing? Is there another thing that should be their function? No, I'm asking. You see, let me tell you one thing. If the Ministry of Housing and Works given to His Excellency Raji Fashola, to me, we're not being professional. He is not an engineer. Let's be realistic to ourselves. In as much as he was the former governor of Lagos State, he had that executive power and veto power to do certain things or to oversee certain things. Even when he had commissioners, he has that right to oversee the functions of the commissioners. But let me tell you one thing, professionalism plays a role with certain things. Just like when you look at a lawyer, you can't give him a commissioner, like what happened in my state one time when Rochas was governor of Imo State. He made a lawyer minister, commissioner for health. Is that not, does that make sense? Let's be realistic to ourselves. So we should be realistic and tell ourselves the truth in this country. There are so many ministries Fashola could fit in very, very well. But as a lawyer, I don't think it's the best thing for him. And that's why he cannot perform. Let me tell you, many people were against Fashola, not only because 3 ministries were mobbed up to him, no. But if you remember, he made a categorical statement proving before the election that any responsible government must fix power within 6 months. Thank God he became a minister for 4 years, the same power, and nothing happened. So let us politicize everything. What I'm trying to say is this: now it has been given to an engineer. The question should be, an engineer on what field? There are civil engineers, there are construction engineers, there are electrical engineers, there are people that read the let and the let and all the regs. So to whom the cap fix, let him do what? Where? And you must streamline it to professionalism. If not, we are just in a road of another jamboree for 4 good years. So I don't know the CV of the new engineer that was given power sector. But if you now make an engineer, maybe who is a construction engineer, and you are giving power sector, I wonder we'll go back to square one. There are no 2 ways about it. So what I'm trying to say here is this: I believe that the president at this point in time should have looked at himself, appraised himself personally. Because before you get anything, you have to first of all look at yourself, tell yourself the truth. Look at the past 4 years. What have I been able to achieve? Now, these people that have been working with me as my foot soldier, because the ministers are supposed to be the foot soldiers to the commander, that are my foot soldiers, what did they achieve? Did they work to a capacity or not? If they did not, remove all of them. It's just like what is happening today. I'm surprised that the president is still keeping all the security chiefs up to now, with all the security challenges we're having in this country, the chief of army staff and all the rest. So it's uncalled for. We talked about Minister of Humanitarian Affairs, or what to me is another jamboree. It happened in my state, also Imo State, as an example, when my governor created Minister of Happiness and Enjoyment. What came out of it? As far as I'm concerned, these are modules to settle political loyalism. You're talking, my brother talked about NEMA. NEMA had been functioning before 2015. Yes. So what went wrong? First, Second Republic. You see the problem we have in this country. If we want, let us speak all the grammar and say everything. If we do not institutionalize our polity and go back to what it used to be before, we can't do anything. We need to institutionalize our system, so that whoever that gets into any system will meet something on ground, a good modus operandi, a good precedent, so that you leverage on it. And not, you see, if you remember, I keep on saying one thing. that unfortunately we've lost the definition of political parties. What we now have is just interest, selfish groups. Because I don't see a governor will come into an office or a president and tell you he has 10-point agenda, 20-point agenda. What has happened to the manifesto of a party?
All right, let's take a look at the Ministry of Niger Delta Affairs. Former governor of Akwa Ibom State was made the minister, substantive minister of that ministry, with senior advocate of Nigeria, Festus Keyamo, as Minister of State of Niger Delta Affairs. What's your take on that appointment? Do you think they have what it takes to actually man the ministry and bring about the much needed development in the Niger Delta region?
Seriously, everything boils down to what my learned friend said. What have they been doing? This post is not the first post he's handling in Nigeria. He was the governor, but now let's focus on the Niger Delta affairs. What are we looking at? We are looking at infrastructure. We are looking at power. Power is very vital in every economy, even in Niger Delta. Without power, we can't function. Even here in the studio, without power, we wouldn't be here. So the government, we have a lot, they have a lot to do for Nigerians. Because 5 years ago or 10 years ago, what they've been telling us is what's still happening. We can't believe that by this time, we'll still be experiencing power failure. Okay, let's look at businesses. Strengthening Niger Delta has to do with not just infrastructure, empowerment of the youth. There are many jobless entrepreneurs out there, jobless youths. There are no jobs. So this empowerment should also focus on initiatives, schemes that will provide fundings, grants to them, and provide them with the requisite skills and knowledge to be able to have a bankable business plan. Because these youths we are talking about, they are very industrious, they're hardworking, but they don't know their left and right. So the government has to look into providing of awareness of creating requisite skills, knowledge, so that they can be able to prepare bankable business plans that will help them access funds to be able to start up something in the society.
All right, in essence, the Ministry of Niger Delta Affairs should focus on the youth, especially in that region, equip them with the prerequisite skills so as to curb restiveness, which we know is one of the major challenges in that region.
Absolutely.
All right, thank you, Barrister McMahon. Okay, let's look at the Ministry of Petroleum. The President retained himself as the Minister, and also former Governor of Bayelsa State, Timi Presiva, as the Minister of State for Petroleum Resources. Did you see that coming?
Well, honestly, I don't understand the rationale behind the President being the Minister of Petroleum. He didn't actually mention it, but of course it's implied, because he didn't appoint anyone.
Yeah.
And of course, the Minister of State. See, one thing has to be clear. No matter how we vocalize it or how we speak about it, most of these positions are political compensations. We have to be very clear about that. Because of course, the President did say after he won the election then that he's going to, this time around, compensate those who have worked for him. Because of course, there was a lot of grumblings the first time when he tried to go on his own. So of course, somebody like Senator Akpabio, you know, of course, 1 minute is in the PDP, he's one of the henchmen of the PDP. The other minute is the minister in the APC. Nothing was needed aside from the fact that, you know, he's a heavyweight in the South, and they'll need some votes from the place. And of course, it's give you scratch my back, I scratch yours. What am I going to get? Fine, we'll compensate you adequately. Of course, he's been adequately compensated. That's what it is. Whether he decides to perform or what he wants to do, because if you look at this closely, I see that the money is there. You know, Niger Delta Ministry has a budget. Of course, I'm sure there will be a permanent secretary in one of those agencies. So, of course, if there's money to share, it just depends how do I want to spend the money as the minister. So most of the time, the problem we have is that there's very little initiative. Even in most states, I can say with the greatest respect, apart from a few, what the governors do most of the time is just to share the resources that they receive on a monthly basis. So if there's probably a crash in the revenue allocation for the month, it's a problem. You won't pay salaries, you won't do this, you won't do that. What of the plan that says okay, aside from maybe Lagos, Rivers, and probably Kano, I don't know, maybe Kano, how many states can function without allocation from the federal government? So until we find a way to say, how can we move politics to a level whereby politicians or whoever is imposed can think for the next 15, 20 years, come up with a plan of sustainability. That is, if not, we're just going to go around and everybody will just receive the money and share it anyhow they please. Of course, your loyalty will always come first. So as for the Niger Delta, it's very sad because, you know, for an oil-rich region like that, you go to the riverine areas, you see schools on shanties, you see poverty of the highest level, serious poverty. You know, gas flaring, destroy the fishes, you know, in the river. So basically, you are producing the golden goose, and then you have to suffer so much. So why is it that you can't invest? That's why the Niger Delta Ministry is there. Go to all those places where the poverty hit them the most, and let them see a change in their life, because all the agitations you see usually come from there. Yeah. So you see that, you're like, why? Of course, why? You know, we'll now complain when there's some sort of uprising. So of course, if the Senator Fabio does well, he should know that addressing these vital issues from the bottom will be granted the success.
All right, Barrister UHUEGBU, who should the ministers report to ordinarily? The president has directed the ministers to report, you know, go through the secretary to the government of the federation, you know, report to him, coordinate their affairs, and this has been generating ripples. Who ordinarily, constitutionally, should the ministers report to?
Are we talking? Are we following the constitution in this country? Now, as it is,
should be.
as it is. Are we still practicing democracy? No, that's a question I'm putting up there. As far as I'm concerned, I've said it so many times in so many forums that, as far as I'm concerned, what we see today is what I call quasi-democracy. Well, I wish they can come and report to me. Yeah, since the trend has changed now. Because you see, it's so unfortunate the kind of thing we see in this country every day. And outside there, we go outside, we brag, Nigeria is the giant of Africa. Yeah, the giant of Africa in quote, in population, but not in any other area. I agree, in population only. How can a president say that these ministers should be reporting to someone before him or through somebody? Why are they your foot soldiers? They are supposed to have unlimited access to you, direct and one-on-one. Because let me tell you, the moment you appoint ministers, they begin to answer ministers of the Federal Republic of what? Nigeria. And by implication, they're answerable to Nigerians and you, because their action and your action are in tandem. So they are supposed to be relating to you one-on-one. Even at any time they call on you, you're supposed to answer them. But unfortunately, now that the directive has come, what are we going to do? And that is the same politics we are talking about. Because if you look at the whole scenario the way it is, you now appoint me a commissioner, for example, in my state, and I do not have access to my governor, which means you have indirectly made me a commissioner without portfolio. Forget about the portfolios you're talking about that have been given to them. So where do I derive my power? They are what we call delegatus non potens delegare in law. The delegate cannot delegate his power. The secretary or whoever is even a delegate to the president. So you are now delegating, and I don't know where we are going in this country. And everybody is keeping quiet. I asked a question last time to my group, to our able people. Are we no longer interested in saving Nigeria again? Where is the Save Nigerian group and all the rest? And all these things are happening. Everybody is behaving as if all is well. As I speak to you, maybe you're not aware, the borders have been closed for one reason or the other, not known. A bag of rice today in Lagos State is about 20-something thousand, which used to be 14 to 15,000 last week. And we are approaching the Christmas. Must the masses suffer for the lapses of the government every time in this country? With due respect, it's not only peculiar to this government, but why must the masses that are supposed to be the people that should enjoy the dividend of democracy, do these people actually understand what the Constitution provides if actually we are still passing democracy? that the main aim of government is for what? For welfare and security of the citizens. Welfare first before security. Now, if you do not take care of the welfare of the citizens, how do you ensure a good security package? It's not possible. So we're even talking about Minister of the Minister. We've not even touched on agriculture. We've not even talked because let me tell you the truth. The poverty rate in this country now is so alarming. I think Nigeria may be categorized as the most impoverished country in the world today. The poverty rate. Look at the kind of fillers we are getting from outside the country. Nigerians are killing themselves. A Nigerian jumped from a 13-story building the other day, I think in Indonesia or what, just for the police not to arrest him, to repatriate him. Nobody wants to come here again. Nobody wants to answer in Nigeria again. A country where God has blessed with milk and honey, and they are now flying rumors that recession is starting again. And I said earlier that as far as I'm concerned, there's nothing like recession. Nigeria will have money. Whoever that is telling you that doesn't have money is a liar. But only that this money goes to the hands of few individuals and all this. So if things are done the proper way, but what baffles me is that all these people, both the governors, the legislators, and all, they travel outside this country. They see what happens, and the way presidents, governors, parliamentarians are, striving every day to make sure that they better the lives of their citizens. Because one thing about life is this: whether they know or they don't know, whether you like it or not, you must leave that position. You must be X one day. Right. If you don't leave it in life, you leave it in death. So that position must be vacant one day. But the issue is there: what legacy are you leaving? What name are you creating? So if we look at, let me tell you, even if you create the whole infrastructure in the world and people are hungry, does it make any sense?
All right, thank you, Barrister UHUEGBU. Now, Barrister Agatha, what do you make of the president telling the ministers to channel their official requests, executive matters through the SGF?
Thank you very much for the question. The government should be listening to Nigerians. If they are listening to Nigerians, by now there should be enough improvement in the society. Nigerians are complaining. You can't tell them before you have easy access to the president, you have to channel it through someone. Is not right constitutionally, and normally is not right, because the people should have easy access to the government, most importantly the ministers. So the ministers should have easy, the effect of this thing is going to prolong dispensation of justice and the rule of law.
All right, you recall the former Minister of State, Ibe Kachiku, once made this allegation that he tried several times when he had the issue with the NNPC GMD then, that he tried severally to reach the president, but was unable to reach the president. And it got many people thinking, if a minister of state to the president, who is supposed to be the Minister of Petroleum, if he cannot reach the president, then who can easily have access to the president? And now the president is saying this, which actually gives credence to the fact that Kachiku was saying the truth then. What do you make of this?
Well, I find it quite shocking order to make, I must confess. But the fact is, you see, when you come to the Constitution, nothing prevents him from saying that. But it's I think more of a moral issue that you have been elected by the people of Nigeria, and you are constitutionally bound to appoint ministers. Now you have appointed them, and you are now directing them to a fellow appointee, because the SGF, or the Chief of Staff, is an appointee, just like the ministers. So of course, I feel that most of the ministers will feel slighted that, why would you tell me to report to the Chief of Staff? Why would I can access you directly, because of course we are also serving Nigeria in our own capacity. So but I want to believe that maybe the president does not feel that the workload might be too much if 41 ministers or thereabouts decide to unbundle all their discoveries and their findings and their intentions on him. So probably he felt that they should channel it through the Chief of Staff. But I don't think that should be the case. I do not think so.
All right, so you're still watching Democracy and the Rule of Law. Our time is running fast. We'll be right back after this break to discuss the arrest of the Taraba kidnap kingpin and the allegations he has been making following his arrest in Kano. Just stay with us. We'll be right back. You're welcome back, and if you just joined us, this is Democracy and the Rule of Law coming to you live from the studio of Galaxy Television, Lagos. All right, the police has arrested kidnap kingpin HAMISU Wadume, a high-profile kidnap kingpin in Taraba State. Wadume was sighted within the premises of the post headquarters in Abuja. You recall that Wadume was being transported to Abuja on August 6th after his initial arrest by police officers on a covert operation before being attacked by troops of the 93 Battalion based in Takum, Taraba State. The attack led to the death of 3 officers, including a civilian, while Wadume was set free by the soldiers. The incident led to a face-off between the police and the Nigerian army, with a panel set up to investigate the matter. Confirming Wadume's arrest on Monday in his hideout in Laimai Alohotoro area of Kano State, First Public Relations Officer DCP Frank Mba said that his capture would shed a light to everything hidden about his escape and the killing of the policemen by soldiers. And indeed, his arrest is really shedding a whole lot of light. Yeah. So there has been many damning allegations made by Wadume, the kidnap kingpin, and this takes us back to the initial release of statement and counter statement by the police initially and the army. Recall that when he was arrested, the army did say the soldiers received a distress call that someone was being kidnapped or something. They didn't stop at the first and second and third checkpoints, and many have been wondering if actually they did not stop while shoot them at close range. Now Wadume has been arrested, and the question is, who was actually lying then? I'll start with you, Barrister FADUN.
Well, I think the first thing is that it shows the level of rot in our system. You know, we try to say it in all sorts of ways to make the system look sane, but it shows the insanity in the system. You know, you imagine that our 2 highest security agencies, the Nigerian Army and the Nigerian Police, of course, I assume by numbers, probably they are the first and second. Because you know, the man has come out to say that he was taken by soldiers who called in a welder to set him free. The story does not make any sense in any way. That, you know, they thought they were kidnappers. You know, they were shot at close range, the police officers. So, of course. And the investigation has shown that the army captain that was involved made 191 calls to the kidnapper, the Wadume. So it shows that the rot is deeper than we think. And I'm sure for there to be a captain, most likely there's a major, there's a brigadier, or probably there's a general somewhere who is making a lot of money from this. Because of course, you know, kidnappers these days, they tend to charge a premium on your court. And I'm sure no captain will feel confident to sit on that and act on his own accord. So it just shows the rot in the system. For us to have people who are supposed to protect us, protecting the people that actually terrorizing the nation.
Country,
So it requires a purge of the system. He mentioned about the security chiefs, and I myself, I might say, I'm shocked as to why they still retain them after all what is going on. Try new hands, all they can change is they will change the theater commander, they change one GOC and change. What of the heads who can come with fresh ideas? People from the outside, I can say, this guy has been doing this wrong for the past 4 years. Why not try somebody else? But no, we still have the same people to come and lead us as security chiefs. And now we are seeing instances whereby the military is aiding kidnappers. So how do we even know that probably in the Northeast things are not, for the sake of money? Of course, they get a lot of money for weapons and all of that. How do you know that some people don't want this thing to extend for a long period so that you get a lot of money? So it's just sad, and I feel that without a purge, but we know Nigeria, it might be that they'll sit over this and then they'll do a meeting behind closed doors and everything will end. I feel that there should be a purge, a serious investigation and a purge of the system. Without that, I think we are just...
All right, many Nigerians were actually impressed with the speed with which HAMISU BALA was arrested. And the question is it because the attack hit home, three fine officers of the Nigeria Police Force, and part of the allegations that he has made now was he was paid some substantial amount of money prior to the general elections, and he was paid that money to settle some thugs. So what do you make of the issue of kidnap in Nigeria? Is this a revelation to tell us that even the security agents might be culpable? And if so, what should be done? Are you optimistic that something drastic will come out of this panel of inquiry?
Thank you. Nigerians will remain hopeful because the latest incident shows that there is anarchy in our security system. How can the military interfere while they are investigating on a kidnapper? It shows that there is crisis in the country, and this issue poses a lot of threats in our economy generally. Investors will be afraid of coming to invest in Nigeria because of this story. Imagine military and policemen having issues, and in the course of duty we lost important lives serving Nigeria. How do we now encourage other young police officers, other young Nigerians who want to serve our country publicly? So I think the government should look into this deeply. We've complained a lot, we've talked about it a lot. This is the time for action. Now investigations are going on, we need results, we need positive results. We don't need people interfering with justice. That's what I have to say. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Barrister UHUEGBU, when this issue happened and I did a report on this particular story, one of my questions to the retired AIG I spoke with then was, is this a problem of lack of synergy between the Nigeria Police Force and the Nigerian Army? Well, I know soldiers who are manning security internally are actually doing police duties, and when a covert operation is taking place in a particular area, it is expected that those within, the soldiers within, everybody should be carried along. That is what is expected, but that did not happen. What you have seen now, those allegations, this confession being made by Wadume, do you still think is still an issue of lack of synergy between the Nigeria Police and other security agencies, be the Army, Civil Defense, or have you, or we're just having quite a lot of number of bad eggs in the system?
Well, first of all, I will say that be it a police officer or a military personnel, they are also part of the Nigerian citizens. That is the one thing you should understand. But you see, I don't know whether you've read this book written by Chinua Achebe, There Was a Country. Let me pause there. Take time and read that book. You see, what we are experiencing in this country today, we have to reflect back to the Chibok girls and also reflect back to the Dapchi girls. Remember, there were a lot of
back and forth,
a lot of allegations of the security agents aiding and abetting. If you remember the works of T.Y. Danjuma, he says something like this. But I thank God that these things are happening. It's no longer rumor. Today is coming out to limelight. And I have to make due to tell you, we that are in practice, if you tell you what we see every day in the hands of the so-called security agents, you will baffle. And let me tell you, any country that do not believe that the head or the executive, whether the federal or the state, that do not believe in the rule of law, that is what you get. There are no two ways about it. Anarchy, lawlessness, impunity to the highest order. And remember, I talked about the systems, institutionalizing the systems. Because if a major general, a captain, a brigadier will sit in an office, that office was there before you came. Definitely one day you will leave. Do you have predecessors that were there? What were their antecedents and their duties before they left? So why will you not come and do things on your own, feeling that nothing will happen? And actually nothing will happen. Why? Because you belong to the higher mighty in the society. There is a clique, there is a cabal. Now, you even said something, that why was this man arrested fast? Is it because they are police officers? I'll answer yes and no. Okay. Because it's only, most times, if you remember, when kidnapping started early, especially in the Niger Delta region, it did not come out to the land until they started kidnapping government officials. It became an issue. I bet you, if it were to be ordinary civilians that were killed, this matter wouldn't go to this extent. Let's be realistic to ourselves. Forgetting the fact that every citizen, the law provides equality before the law. That's why I say before you become a police officer, you are a citizen of Nigeria. And nobody has the right to take your life. That is extrajudicial killing. The military on its own. You see, I don't know whether you saw the video clip. It went viral on social media where a military man on uniform and a policeman on uniform were fighting. They tore their dresses. That is the extent we have generated in this country. Exactly. And tomorrow you expect a child that is coming back from school to tell him that police is your friend, the military is your friend. Before, when we were growing up, in those days, if you have any problem, you see a uniformed man, you run to that person, you feel safe. But today, when you see them, you even become more afraid. Yes. Because there's no connection again. The trust is no longer there. And let me tell you the truth. You see, we don't have rulers in this country. We only have leaders. Because some of these things today, during the election, there were so many military uniforms flying, police uniforms flying. It even happened in my own state that were fake. Why? It is this same politicians that went and armed these people with military uniform, police uniform, and with guns. Now, after election, would you retrieve it from them? The answer is no. It is in this country that one time president said that if insurgency lasts for more than 24 hours, suspend the government. What have we done since that time? I wonder what the military will come up with. If you remember when we did a documentary on the last year's Human Rights Day, when Amnesty International indicted the Nigerian military, they were talking a whole lot of things. Let me see how they will talk on this one. Let me see what they are going to say. Let me see what Brutal is going to say. And like Fela said before, when the military do anything, if you go to they will tell you that they are unknown soldiers. So are you going to tell me also that these ones are unknown soldiers too? When Wadume has made a confessional statement, has mentioned names and all the rest. And now, how do you expect such things to stop? When the hoodlums, they have contacts with the government, is it not in this country that a one-time senator and the former governor was accused of having linked with the Boko Haram? What came out of it? Nothing. So, you see, when you see certain things, is it not the same federal government that says see something and do something and say something? And when you see and say, you become a suspect. It becomes a problem. But thank God that these things are happening today. Nigerians are beginning to see with their eyes. When we were shouting in 2014, 2015, people were thought some of us were being political. But today it has become a monster seed that has grown and is affecting everybody. Because whether we like it or not, we are talking about Nigerians. Look at those 3 young men that lost their life. Those IRT guys. And almost all the kidnapping issues in this country, it is this squad led by Abakari, because he's a man I know very well and I respect, that have been leading. Even the one that happened in Igbo, in almost all the states. And you are not saying, remember that their first excuse that they were suspected kidnappers. How can you say that? People that went all the way from Abuja to Taraba State with investigation activities and all papers and everything, and they also identified themselves. And you are not saying you shot them at close range and all the rest. Thank God, you see, if this man was not arrested, this thing would have been swept under the carpet. But I thank God that it happened this way, because the police, they are involved. And I trust the Nigerian police. The truth is that the Nigerian police, when they want to do their job, they will do it all. And that is why when things happens in Nigeria, if they don't want to do it, they don't. But once they want to do their job, and I trust the hierarchy of the police formation now that is in Abuja. Most of them are intelligent officers that are manning those places. So let us wait and see what happens. Wadime has been arrested and he has been making a lot of revelations. More are still coming. But the problem is this. He's now on the limelight. He's now on the media. Tomorrow NBC will start telling you people what to say and what not to say.
All right, right, sir.
No, it's not all right. That is the problem we're having in this country. The investigative journalism has died. Freedom of information has died, and all the rest. Now, if they want to sweep it up, because one way or the other, you might see that this thing might touch one or two strong people in government. He has said that the APC gave him money. I think he mentioned 30 million or thereabout. And more revelations will come. So when you begin to mention these names, hells will roll. And I bet you they may not allow you to get to that stage. But it will go. You know why? Because policemen's life has been lost and they are involved.
All right. Thank you very much, Barrister UHUEGBU. Let's talk about extrajudicial killing generally in Nigeria. You know, the way security officers, not even just the police, not the military, even I remember a case of a boy who was shot by an NSCDC official in Bayelsa State, and recall the one that happened in Lagos recently where some suspected fraudsters were shot in a bus. It went viral. They have been arrested, dismissed, and their case, they're being prosecuted. Now, how do you think we need to curb this issue of extrajudicial killing, especially by security officers? You know, it has become a trend, and the most we hear of it is they have been dismissed and facing prosecution. Is that enough to serve as a deterrent to other police officers or other arm-bearing security officers who want to take the law into their hands, get drunk with power, and shoot innocent Nigerians, irrespective of what they're suspected to have committed?
Yes, of course. You know, the country where we are, we have a lot of issues as regards our security personnel. You know, some break it down to maybe the harsh weather conditions. Some even say that, you know, they're on the road. That, well, in fact, the senior officer did say that, you know, when you're dealing with police officers on the road, you have to be careful what you say. They're on the road, they have been under the sun, they might be frustrated. I don't know what sort of... I'm sure Nigeria is not as hot as Dubai. No. It's not as hot as Dubai. So that itself is not, in fact, doesn't make any logical sense. But as you have said, you know, you cannot prosecute the family of the man for the offenses that maybe the father of the family commits. Once they are caught, what we should see is that we should make sure that the prosecution is done to a logical conclusion. Because what we do here is that most of these officers, or police officers, or security agents, what they do is that once the media lights blows away, they take them to somewhere, probably in the corner, give them a new name tag, and they continue serving. I've heard that on several occasions. That once the media publicity is, you know, blows down or dies down, they just transfer them somewhere and, you know, keep quiet, don't make a lot of noise, and, you know, keep collecting salary, and it will soon be over. So we should say that this case started on August 2019. By 1 year time from now, what stage is the case? And we should follow up. There should be probably a think tank or a body that should monitor that, because if they transfer somebody from here to Sokoto, how do you know? Somebody should be able to follow up, but of course they should face prosecution. That's all.
Just prosecution.
Well, there is really not much. You know, as I've said, whether a police officer or not is a Nigerian, as he has said.
Yeah.
And when a Nigerian commits murder, he has committed an offense under our laws. So whether it's a police officer or not, you cannot say normally if you kill somebody on purpose, you have committed murder. then of course you should face the
it's
charges.
quite unfortunate and heartbreaking when issues like this happen. That's why I had to chip in just prosecution.
No, it's sad. There's really not much you can do except, of course, every other thing is self-help or jungle justice. That's all that's left.
What role do you think does he did make mention of those who, well, there's so much the media can do rather, because so many issues keep breaking and you just can't, just can't keep up with everything. Though it's still a call, it's still a task on the part of the media to do more to track this particular case. But on your part, what do you think civil society organizations should begin to? I know we have so many of them. Is this a good course the civil society organizations in Nigeria can actually take on to ensure that justice goes the long haul and these people, the victims and their family, gets closure?
Okay, thank you. I think the appropriate authority is the judiciary. The judiciary should encourage fast and quick dispensation of justice, because actually Nigerians are already giving up. You hear them saying, oh, once it gets to court, leave it there, forget it. But if we encourage our judiciary, provide them with the necessary support to see that justice are fast and easily dispensed, I think it will go a long way in changing it in the society. And Nigerians will begin to see the implication and consequences of illegal actions and offenses committed in our country.
All right, Barrister UHUEGBU, I know the panel will soon be done with its job, especially with the confession of Wadume. I know this week a whole lot is still going to happen this week, and we'll be right back on this table to continue discussion on whatever comes out of that panel. But overall, what are your final take? What is your charge to the panel as this issue continues to gain momentum?
Well, as far as I'm concerned, this should have been the best time Mr. President should sack the security chiefs. This is the best opportunity he has to sack them now. Without looking back, they must be made to step aside and also be held liable. Let me tell you, part of the problem we have in this country is because nobody accepts responsibility. If you get into an office, every other person working under that office is your agent, and whatever they do, you are the principal. You are to bear the brunt of whatever they do. So I think that the chief of defense staff must be made to account for this thing that has happened. They are not doing that. So if any other person is coming, you will not give your subordinates an orientation. No, this thing cannot be on my head though. Whatever you do, you are on your own. Let me tell you, do you know why security agents like the police, the DSS, the military and all the rest, why their men go out and do and they unleash terror on the citizens and nothing happens? Because the moment anything happens and they get to the office, they do it who know man. You are not there. I'm a civilian, and they'll call you bloody civilian. Why these cases like this, like I said, because these people are police people and this is military. If it were ordinary civilians like me, they will say bloody civilians, and at the end of the day, nothing will happen. Right. So as far as I'm concerned, we must look. If I don't want to, if we begin to say the terror the Nigerian police unleash on innocent citizens in this country, extortion. I don't know. You said boys are doing Yahoo. They are even doing more Yahoo now than the boys. Because when you see people on the road, you obtain money from them. Is that not stealing? In fact, it's armed robbery, because it is the fear of the gun you're holding. Do you know that most of them goes to the extent of taking these boys to an ATM machine for them to withdraw money and give to them, especially in Imo State. And everybody is keeping quiet. And you are saying that we're in a democracy, and you're saying that the country will move forward. How can? We need an overhauling of the whole system. All
right, thank you, Barrister UHUEGBU. And on that note, we'll wrap up our discussion on today's edition of Democracy and Rule of Law. Thank you, Barrister FADUN AKEEM, for coming on the show. Thank you. And I hope you will come when I invite you. Of course. It's our civic duty. We'll be here. All right, thank you very much. And Barrister AGATHA MCMADU, thank you. And Barrister Justice UHUEGBU, thank you for coming on the show. All right, thank you, our esteemed viewers at home, for joining us on today's edition of Democracy and the Rule of Law. We'll be back at 1 p.m. next Sunday for another exciting edition. My name is JUDITH. Do enjoy. Have a great week ahead.
Galaxy Television, in collaboration with FADUN, presents the Nigerian Television Fashion Show NTFS